I've had enough! I've had enough! I can't take it anymore! I hate this all so much! Ah! Ah!
What's wrong with you?
I keep trying to open these jars of pickles and I keep slicing them open accidentally! I can't take this! I just want to sniff the juice, that's all. I hate these scythes so much, Collector, I hate them!
Look, I know how you feel. I had a friend once that was turned into a Kabutops by a crazy scientist. It all worked out in the end. You know what, let's get your mind off of all of this and let's talk about some cool new Paldean Form concepts for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Well, I guess if we have a video to work on, it'll distract me from my issues for at least 10 or so minutes, give or take. And there's only been, one regional variant shown off so far? That Wooper surely can't be all we have waiting for us, there's just no way. I guess it does fall on us, the greatest Pokemon YouTubing duo ever, to fill in the blanks that a bunch of people already have by following leakers and other Pokemon YouTubers. Thankfully, we don't, so we can spend time coming up with these new forms.
It's pretty shocking to say the least, but yes, we have in fact only have one Paldean Form revealed to us at the moment, with the likelihood being that we'll probably have at least another dozen or two waiting for us this November.
I hope that's the case. This better not be the generation where Game Freak decides, hey, we don't really need any regional variants, we just have a bunch of new Pokemon. I mean, it's not like they're going to have any in the Unnovan remakes, those will probably just end up being faithful for the most part. So I guess we'll just step in here and speak some cool new Pokemon into existence. Why don't you start us off, Collector?
Alright then, let's start off with Noctowl. A very well-designed Gen 2 Pokemon that I think deserves some more love. It's always looked so intimidating, especially coming from something as adorable as Hoothoot, so it's kind of surprising that it was just in the normal typing of these early bird Pokemon instead of taking advantage of the newly introduced dark typing at the time of its creation. So how about we change that? We could see a Paldean Noctowl based on the Boreal Owl, a very small yet very violent owl that inhabits a large portion of Europe. Its scientific name literally translates to a bird of ill omen and funereal, so I think it's actually very fitting. I mean, I feel like a lot of regional variants usually make the Pokemon a lot flashier and stand out more from their previous incarnation, so the idea that it would get smaller kind of takes that in a different direction, right? Well, I guess getting significantly smaller does actually make you stand out when you're much larger before, so never mind that point.
I like the idea of that Noctowl a lot. Man, whoever came up with that was really cool. So I've got one here to bring up. You guys know how Parasect is like basically some weird parasitic thing to begin with? Well, what if it was just a corpse? Think about this. A Parasect mushroom upside down and spinning like a top. Well, okay, it's not spinning, but that would be funny. Anyway, it's upside down and the appendages of its body are all curled in. From the middle of it comes a bunch of legs, akin to those of a daddy long-legged spider, lifting the mushroom top from the ground about a foot off and creating a disgusting, spooky poison ghost type Pokemon. It just turned out the region of Paldea was not a good place for Paras to live, and upon evolving, something ended up essentially killing them and creating these abominations. It's not even possible for anyone to get close enough to look and see what's coming out from the middle of the corpse that the legs come from, all because it emits a toxic gas from the inside of, well, what is again a bug's corpse. It's kind of horror-based and a bit spooky, but cool nonetheless, I think. It's definitely a darker side of things that Game Freak occasionally taps into.
Man, that really is a horrifying bug monster you described there. Guess it truly does take one to know one, am I right? Oh, it sure got you there, buddy.
Yeah, it actually does, Mario!
No, we're talking about Pokemon here, not other Nintendo characters. What's wrong with you? Anyways, how about I bring us back to Gen 2 with Magcargo? You see, snails are not just a delicacy in France, but in Spain as well. I think you can all see where I'm going with this. The people of Paldea did what they needed to do. How does one take care of a slug and a raging inferno all at once? Well, you douse it with some salt water, of course. This barbaric action triggered Slugma's evolution into a rock ghost type Magcargo. I imagine this version of Magcargo having its shell halved and being on its side, not too dissimilar to Hisui and Sliggoo. The difference here being that it would look like a nice bowl of tapacatacoles. Its flame being extinguished, but maintains just enough heat to be dined on. Scrumptious.
My word, I thought my stuff with Parasect was dark, but that was just sad. I can't believe they're just gonna eat that Magcargo, but, you know, Circle of Life and all that. Anyway, I want to talk about a Paldean form for Scolipede. It's based off that one character from Dragon Ball Z, like the filler. It's a fighting caterpillar that Goku goes up against during the Otherworld tournament. It's got a bunch of arms and is wearing boxing gloves. Not all that, dissimilar from what Ledian is like. Scolipede will stand on its back legs and just start fist fighting other bugs with all of its little nubs. See, in Paldea, instead of fighting with Centiskorch for territory like it does in Galar, Scolipede instead needs to contend with Heracross and Pinsir, and thus decided to hit the gym and get swole so it could keep its own little part of the woods for itself. I know, I just made up a lot of weird lore with this thing, but I figured it'd be a lot of fun to look at a Scolipede that has just suddenly begun to walk on its hind legs and just deck random bugs in the face. Who would not want to see that, honestly?
Well, I guess you really can't go wrong with another bug fighting Pokemon. I mean, the only one we have that's not a legendary of sorts is, in fact, Heracross. So yeah, bring it on! As for me, I think I want to talk about something less creepy and crawly and more cute and, well, not so cuddly. Not because you wouldn't want to, but because of the mess that it would make. I'm talking about a regional variant for Alchemy, a very recently introduced creature to the series. But you might be asking, what could you possibly do with a Pokemon like Alchemy? Look at it like this. Paldea has its own dessert Pokemon in Fido, and perhaps there was so much focus on Fido that the Alchemy of the region were forgotten about, and with no one to enjoy its delicious cream, it eventually went stale and hard as a rock. So let's go with that, a fairy rock type Alchemy. It might not be so flavorful anymore, unless you're into really hard meringue, but it's still cute and deserving of love.
See, that's really sad what happened to Alchemy. I mean, it's so delicious and what have you, but to be left behind and not ever eaten? That's a fate nobody deserves. Collector, I promise if I outlive you, I will eat you and I will not let any of you go to waste.
Excuse me?
Yeah, I got you, buddy. Much love. Anyway, let's do a Ludicolo regional variant I just thought of. It's based off of the white-headed duck, and definitely leans more into that whole duck thing as opposed to being a weird pineapple mariachi monster. The regional variant in this case ends up changing the design entirely to go from that shape to a more of a traditional duck, a la Ducklet, but just a bit bigger. Its bill becomes blue, and the shape of the hat on its head is going to sort of change into like, do you have an idea for this, Collector?
Perhaps the hat could turn into a traditional Spanish hat that it can remove and actually attack with. You know what would be also really interesting too? If the hat was combined with an instrument, like a tambourine. It could become a water steel type and attack with the sound of music. How does that one sound, Prime?
I like it. I'm into the thought that this duck would be able to stay grounded in Spanish musical roots while also being a for-real duck. It's probably not the most interesting Pokemon regional variant we'll talk about in this video, but it's just the right kind of weird fun that I think Game Freak would try to do something with it.
You know one that they could definitely do something with is Aegislash, the Ghost Steel type from next door. This Pokemon is incredibly popular, and I can imagine a lot of people would be down with it getting some more love with a form change. However, let's get really weird with this one here. Instead of being a sword and shield, why not the historically iconic spear and shield? I mean, spears were typically used in the army in the Spanish Inquisition, and you can't just take away its shield. Could you imagine how people would react to something like that? Going from a nice, thick sword to a scrawny spear? It would be a Alolan Exeggutor all over again. But what would we do for typing here? Well, perhaps we could go with a nice grass steel, as I'm thinking it would be wooden for its base. Hey, maybe this is how it ended up as a ghost type. That quad weakness to fire really doing a number on it, and that spirit carried on over to the Kalos region, making this Paldean Form the true Aegislash.
You know what, that's actually a very fun take on Aegislash. I really like the idea that it would become a ghost type simply because a shielded spear made of mostly wood would definitely be just burned away. I have one that's got a lot of in-game lore with it, taking a Pokemon and changing up a lot of what we do know about it currently. So take a Salandit, and change its typing from fire poison to electric poison. There's this really cool salamander in Spain that is known by the scientific name Salamandra longriostris. Longnosis. I don't know. And just take a look at it. It's black and yellow, which instantly got me thinking about the electric typing. So think about it like this. You have a male Salandit, and suddenly it's evolving! Really changing the game, right? Well, it evolves into a Pokemon called Rolandit, with the power to shoot electricity alongside its poison and deliver a true shock to a Pokemon system. It has an ability that allows its electric-type moves to actually hit ground-type Pokemon. Since its electricity is laced with poison, that same poison can act as something of a conductor that actually leaves them at the mercy of electric attacks. We'll call this ability Insolent Illness, and I gotta tell you, I think we've got the $1 million Pokemon here, Collector. Throw it in the thumbnail.
You know what? I will. That was honestly a really cool one. Maybe even the coolest so far. So cool that I may just need to try and top you, because I'm just like that. You know, I want to take it back to the Gen 5 bugs and take a look at one that I felt has gotten overlooked too often. I'm talking about Crustle, of course. I think we can base a Paldean Form off of the European fire bug, a real common pest that honestly should have been the basis of a Pokemon sooner. But let's not just make Crustle bug fire and call it a day. Let's think about how its looks would change. Naturally, it would be a nice, sleek red and black color palette, but instead of the big hunk of crust on its back, what about a nice heap of burning coal? Perhaps there could be ashy patches on the coal that make it resemble the markings the bug is typically known for. However, I don't think I can quite come up with anything as cool as the new ability you made for Relamdit there, so I think you may have actually beat me this time. But it will be the last time you ever do.
Ah, come on, Collector. There's no shame in losing to a Pokemon when talking about other Pokemon. I could go have a full-fledged conversation with a Salandit right now if I wanted to. It just is what it is. I like what you did with Crustle, though. I think it's a very believable regional variant in all honesty. Perhaps the most believable one of all time. You're so cool and really awesome, Collector, and you know about the coolest ice cream parlors. Anywho, I think we have time for one last Pokemon today, and I'm really going to reach down far deep into my bag of weird stuff. You guys remember Sesame Street, right? So Big Bird, he had that imaginary friend named Snuffy, and I want to see a Tangrowth looking like this elephant guy. Think of a Tangrowth that almost looks like it's walking on 4 legs, with a tremendous amount of Spanish moss covering its entire body, and those iconic eyes still up on its face. It drags the Spanish moss around on the ground like vines, and it ends up becoming like a grass ground type, for example, because its moss vines are constantly getting caught in the ground as it's kind of slow, and thus it gives the fast-growing moss a chance to get stuck in the dirt and grow even more. Well, what do you think about that one, Hector?
Okay, look, I was ignoring the fact that you were just calling me Collector throughout the whole video, but now you're just saying Hector? What's up with this newfound attitude? I think I've been very fair to you. I mean, I keep your cage clean, I feed you, and most of all, I let you take the spotlight in today's video. What more do you want from me?
I want to make some more videos with you, of course. You're my best friend, and getting to work with you and entertain these kind folks who watch us is the highlight of my week. We came up with such cool Pokemon ideas for a second straight video, and that's nothing to sneeze at. Speaking of sneezing, boy, do I still miss my nose.
That's it. I've had enough back talk. Get back in your cage. I'm Collector Dexter.
Haha, yeah, and I'm the Prime Directive, you silly Billy.
Shut up! And we'll see you all next time.